get it because she's like a lawyer and hello there everyone, I'm licking light bulbs. To start of this video, let's first establish the basic information required to comprehend this piece of media by listing off the 5 W's. First of all, whomst is this video about? It's about the clear replacer, Xiangling hater, and Scarlet Seal stacker, Yanfei. In case you're curious about who's responsible for this video, it wasn't actually me. Voice number 3 is responsible for this one. Moving on to the what, you will quickly learn that this video has no inherent purpose other than to waste your time, unless you're watching this on your secondary display, in which case now with your attention acquired, let's move on to the when. When is now at the time of recording? It is February 22nd and the video will be out in hopefully roughly a week from now. So are you really listening to me or just an ethereal form? Moving on. Where? Well, Genshin Impact is an action role-playing game developed and published by miHoYo. It was released for Android, iOS, PlayStation 4 and Windows in 2020, on PlayStation 5 in 2021 and is set for release on Nintendo Switch. The game features an anime-style open-world environment and an action-based battle system using elemental magic and character switch. Why? Well, as I said, voice number 3 has been more prevalent recently, leading me to become more and more schizophrenic, which in turn has led me to come up with building yanfei. But also because Dehya is about to release, and if she hasn't already, I want to make me feel like a worthless Chinese street dog even more by building a pyro DPS that doesn't make me want to jump off a bridge and jump back up, because we don't condone self-harm on this channel. However, and hear me out, this is a bold thesis, I know, but were you aware that upon completing Floor 3, Chamber 3 of the Spiral Abyss, you obtain a free copy of Xiangling, an off-field pyro damage dealer without internal elemental application cooldown on her elemental burst, Pyronado. You thought this video was about yanfei? This was a fucking Xiangling advertisement the entire time. Get played, you utter buffoon, as if I was legally allowed to recommend building anyone but Xiangling and her respective business supports. Now, of course, Genshin Impact's lost grief, however anxiety-inducing for some, isn't actually all that difficult once you've crossed a certain investment level, which you will reach with due time, so you're free to play whatever character you like, which is exactly why we are gonna be going over yanfei, her kit, playstyle, teams, builds, etc. today. And yes, this entire section still technically serves the purpose of answering the who question. Playstyle. Okay, so since most people probably have never used yanfei, I'm gonna be going over her kit, starting with which is her most straightforward ability, her skill. It deals an okay amount of pyro damage in a somewhat sizable AoE, but more importantly, it grants her the maximum amount of Scarlet Seals. These, in combination with yanfei's charge attacks, is what her kit revolves around. And with that, we can move on to her normal attack talent, as every time you hit an enemy with her NAs, as I will be referring to them from now on, you will grant 1 Scarlet Seal, stacking up to a maximum of 3 or 4 with C6. These will decrease your yanfei's charge attacks from now on. See, stamina cost by 50% per level and increase their damage by a somewhat arbitrary but still significant amount. This paired with her E means that you want to stack up your Scarlet Seals to 3 or 4 and then use your C, ideally vaporizing it. Tying into that is her Elemental Burst, which on its own isn't really all that strong, as it has a very steep 80 energy cost and a multiplier barely higher than her skills. However, it also grants 1 Scarlet Seal every second on top of providing roughly 50 to 60% charge attack damage bonus for 15 seconds, making it so that yanfei's optimal uptime, shortly after which you want to swap out and repeat your rotation. However, Since her E has a fairly long cooldown, yanfei doesn't actually generate that many particles, which, paired with her high burst cost, means that unless your rotation allows for battering with Bennett or your good artifacts just happen to have a bunch of ER rolls, it's for the best to queue every other rotation and not forego offensive substats, as even though 60% charge attack damage bonus sounds way better than a few crit rolls, it actually isn't worth it, as yanfei ascends with pyro damage percent, and along with pyro damage percent goblet and a 2-piece Crimson Witch, a Witsith or a Lost Prayers, you just end up with a lot of damage percent to a point where you hit what you could technically call diminishing returns. It's not actually mathematically correct diminishing returns, but it does go into the same direction, so TLDR, use yanfei's Q whenever you can, but don't go out of your way to build more ER. Oh yeah, and her talent level priority is actually accurately reflected in game for once, as you first want to level her an A, then her Q, and if you have some resources left, her E. Builds. It's actually pretty straightforward. Either go for 4-piece Crimson Witch or a 4-piece Wanderer's Troop set. And no, Shiminawas and the Bowlight are not viable options, and using them will result in Hoyo booking an anti-self-harm course paid by yourself using the credit card information you entrusted them with. You can also, of course, run various combinations of 2-piece sets, however, since Wanderers is pretty easily obtained, and you probably already have a good set of it, that's what I'd usually recommend. Similarly, sub and main sets aren't too complex either. Prioritize crit with some attack, EM and ER, and go for, depending on substats, an attack sense or EM sense, a pyro damage goblet and a crit circlet, damage or rate, whatever gets you closer to a decent ratio. Finally, let's move on to her weapons, as there's quite a bunch of good options for every kind of player, even wordless ones. To immediately contradict what I just said, I am just going to assume that you have an R1 Witsith, and since you of course do possess one, I can go from there, because better than it are only 5-star options. However, in case you own an R5 Witsith, which is pretty likely considering it's on every banner, it's straight up one of, if not her best option, only being beaten out by a Lost Prayers and maybe the Bell. However, I couldn't really find that many resources on it, and since its passive isn't the greatest for yanfei, I'd say it's still worse than a Witsith with its buff up. Now, in case you are among the unfortunate souls that don't have a Witsith, or you want to run a different build, here's a Briefless Catalyst that might be good for you. The Oathsworn Eye is her best free-to-play option, only being about 6% behind the R1 Witsith in damage, but also providing a massive 48% ER, making it arguably even better than an unrefined Witsith. However, its event was like a year ago, so you might not even have it, in which case Black Cliff, Solar Pearl, Dodaka Tails for whatever reason, because it's even longer ago, or a high refined Mappa Mare are also worth considering. Honorable mentions go to Sect Frags, which is pretty good for Overload yanfei, but no one fucking plays that. The Prototype Amber for making C4 tank pay viable, and lastly, to off your Shangli. Yes, here we go again. You didn't think I managed to bring her up twice in this video, but I did, and you are gonna have to deal with that. Continuing on, we've reached the team building and combo section. Feel free to subscribe, then unsubscribe, leave, and touch some grass, as you're watching a Genshin Impact video on a character that you will never end up using in any meaningful content yourself. However, be sure to leave the tab open, as I do really want the watch time. For her teams, nowadays no one really uses Overload carries or Monopyro teams anymore, so I'm just gonna be talking about her Vape and support teams. To get the latter out of the way, if you have her C4, she can be used as a shielder, her predominant use lying in being the Pyro Applicator for Hutao VV Vape teams, as she not only enables Pyro Swirls and provides an honestly pretty good shield, but she can, as I mentioned in the weapon section, use the Prototype Amber, which not only helps for your requirements, but also heals Hutao to a point where you probably won't get one-shot through Xingqiu's Rain Sword's damage reduction, but also not an excessive amount to a point where you'll get pushed above 50% HP. So unless you have an LG to use with your Amber, a yanfei will generally be one of, if not the best option for your Hu Tao VV Vape Tea. But I know none of you clicked on this video hoping to learn more about prototype Amber yanfei, as her most prominent team, if you can even call it that, is a classic vape team consisting of Bennett, Xingxiao or Sita Yalan, and Kazuha or Sucrose. Obviously, I won't have to explain the idea behind vape teams, so I'm just gonna get straight into the spicy stuff. Her team rotations. Assuming a team comp consisting of Yanfei, Bennett, Kazuha, and Xingxiao, you probably start with Xingxiao's E into Q, then Bennett E into dash into Q to prevent Xingxiao's Rainsword's orbitals from messing up the Pyro Swirl, then go to Kazuha E to swirl Pyro, and then go to Yanfei, at which point one of two combos will be optimal depending on your Yanfei's and Xingxiao's constellations. Either do Q into N1C into N1 into E into C if you have fast enough Hydro application, either through C6 Xingxiao or Xingxiao plus Yalan, or if you are unfortunate enough to not have Xingxiao's 6th constellation, just do N3Cs and E of cooldown until your buffs run out. I'm pretty sure N2C is also possible. Also, it should be possible to swirl both Hydro and Pyro by swirling Hydro with Kazu's Burst. However, despite attempting it many times, wasn't able to reliably do it, so I advise against it since you might just end up Pyro infusing your Kazu's Burst, at which point you, quite frankly, won't be vaping shit. Now, I could, of course, list all the different combos you can and cannot do. However, I am sick and tired of re-recording this shit. Q into N1C, into N1, into E, into C. Just do whatever. Honestly, who cares? I apologize. This fit of anger is attributable to voice number 3 again, and not myself, as I am calm and composed. And thinking otherwise will make you a bad and ignorant person. Ever heard of gaslighting? Haha, wow, me neither. The people who made that up are just evil, rotten wretches whose only goal in life is to make mine worse. Haha. Moving on. Since I've lost all focus for today and the next 3 weeks, I'm just gonna fucking kill the best run. Since I'm scripting this, let's hope I'm not gonna need 20 attempts for the second chamber. Ha 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 ha. Foreshadowing is a literary device. Okay, so now that you've seen how Yanfei's probably best team performs in the hardest abyss we've had since, I don't know, the Beta Turtles in 1.2? They were really scary. I almost pissed myself. Speaking of which, have you ever felt like you weren't respected in your friend group? I'd advise to visit their homes, inquire of the whereabouts of their lavatories, and then continue to piss on all their toilet paper. This will ensure you the position of an alpha male not only in your friend group, but also throughout the city. Now, if you're left wondering about this rather unusual tangent, rest assured I literally pulled this on my ass and it is no meaning. I just came up with the joke and didn't know how to properly implement it in a reasonable way. Due to a lack of any kind of transition, this is the end of the video. Sub, retweet, I fucking made that joke in the last video's description.